All right, ready to dive deep. Today, Victor Frankenstein's mind.
Oh, interesting.
Not the monster movies, though.
Right, right.
This is early days, before the creature. Back to Mary Shelley's book, Young Victor the Student. Why a monster? Why go there?
Yeah, we skip ahead, don't we? The horror. But Shelley, she gives us this whole journey, Victor's psychology, way before it all goes wrong.
Exactly. Chapter 4, right. Ingolstadt University. Victor, obsessed. Chemistry, natural philosophy, like picture it, the beakers bubbling, those dusty old books, classic mad scientist vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Natural philosophy became nearly my sole occupation, he says. So, not just a hobby for this guy, huh?
Consumed by it, you might say. You gotta remember what science was like then, late 1700s.
Yeah.
Huge discoveries left and right, galvani, volta, electricity, this idea, the spark of life, it was in the air.
Oh, wow. Yeah, like anything's possible.
Exactly. That atmosphere, it's electric.
And Victor's a star student, impressing those tough professors like, what about Professor Kremp? Repulsive physiognomy, Shelley writes.
Not someone you want to meet in a dark alley, probably.
Right. But Victor sees past that, still finds value in the lectures.
Dedication, pure and simple. He's not after easy answers, knowledge, that's what he wants.
All in. And that drive leads him to say, well, other fields of study, kind of boring.
Literally, in other studies, you go as far as others have gone before you, and there is nothing more to know. But science.
Science is different.
Told ya.
Because in a scientific pursuit, there is continual food for discovery and wonder.
There it is.
That's Victor right there. He doesn't want what others know. He wants to discover, to push, to see what's possible.
And that's the turn from loving science to the origin of life. That's specific.
No messing around. He says the principle of life, big stuff, even now. I mean, back then, that's got to be radical, right?
Radical, sure. But think of it like this. Scientists were already messing with life and death, galvanism, bringing dead tissue back with electricity. So that line was blurry.
So Victor's ambitious, but he's also a product of his time, like you're saying. But imagine him realizing nobody had cracked the code of life yet. He even asks, why hasn't anyone else discovered this secret? A little confident, maybe.
It's important, right? You start to see it. His ambition, it could be blinding him. He's so focused on the what creating life. He's not asking why or what'll happen.
And his research, not exactly a clean lab. Shelley talks about vaults and charnel houses, dissecting rooms, death everywhere. Not your typical scientist image.
Yeah, that's Shelley. Noble goals, understanding life. But then the reality makes you wonder, how far is too far?
And it wasn't just the setting, right? Victor, he's changing too. Friends, family gone, his health going downhill, pale with study, Shelley says, emaciated with confinement. When does ambition become unhealthy? Too much.
Big question. And Victor, he feels it almost. Like he knows something's off. He even says, is this unlawful what I'm doing?
Yeah. He compares himself to those historical figures, the ones who went too far. Driven by passion, did terrible things. He sees that darkness, in theory. So why not stop?
Justification.
Yeah.
He's got it in his head that knowledge, it's bigger than the risk, that he's different. He says, if I could bestow animation upon lifeless matter, I might, in process of time, renew life where death had apparently devoted the body to corruption. Noble goal? Maybe. But he's losing it a little, isn't he?
Playing God, almost, you could say. Conquering death itself. That's some serious stuff.
Exactly. And that's where responsibility comes in. Shelley's not just telling us a scary story, right? It's ethics. How far is too far? Is any knowledge worth it?
So you got Victor. Brilliant, driven, maybe a little too sure of himself on the edge of something huge, but alone, neglecting himself. Morals shaky. And here's the thing. He's at university, smart people all over. But does he talk to anyone? Nope.
That isolation, it's key. Because when we're alone, that's when our own thoughts, they can either guide us or lead us down a dark path. Victor, it seems like his ambition is shutting out any other voice, even his own doubts.
So even if he'd made life right then, he was already messed up, like doomed no matter what.
That's the question, isn't it? Was the monster inevitable? Could he have chosen differently, avoided it all?
Makes Frankenstein so timeless, so creepy. It's not just the monster, but what happens when we lose control, when we don't think about the consequences, shut everyone out and lose ourselves. Still relevant even now.
Totally, especially now. Science, tech, everything moving so fast.
Yeah.
Shelley's asking, how far is too far? What are we willing to lose chasing progress?
We've covered a lot, and we haven't even gotten to the monster yet. But before we do, there's this one detail. You probably caught it.
Oh, I know what you mean, the 8-foot-tall problem.
Yeah.
Why make him so big?
Right. It's not random Victor choosing that, so what's the deal? What do you think it means? It's weird, right, when you really think about it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's how, Shelley, she knew what she was doing.
Hmm.
It's horror, yeah. But there's this whole other level, human nature, what it means to create.
And the creator himself, some people say that giant creature. It's Victor's ego, like he's going to make something in his image, but bigger. To prove something. What do you think?
Could be. This is a guy thinks he's going to top every scientist ever, so why not a giant creature,
Yeah.
right? Shows how important he thinks he is.
And that line, remember, pour a torrent of light into the world, sounds different with an 8-foot-tall being doing the pouring, you know? It's not just about life anymore, is it?
Nope, it's control.
Hmm.
Victor doesn't want to just life, death, all that. He wants to be in charge of it, remake the world his way. And that's scary. That kind of ambition, it can go really bad, really fast.
And Victor, clueless at this point, huh?
Oh, yeah. He's so excited, thinking he's going to be a hero. Doesn't see how wrong it could go.
Which, of course, it does. Total tragedy. But that's what gets me about this early part, even before the monster's alive. It's like, we're seeing the tragedy start already, before anything really happens.
Because the monster, it's not just a thing Victor builds, it's him, but like externalized.
Yeah.
All that ambition, being alone, not seeing what's right, it's all part of how the monster gets made.
So even if the creature was normal-sized, things are still messed up.
Maybe, maybe. But being huge like that, it's like a symbol. Victor thinking he's bigger than he is. And that's dangerous.
Makes you think, what if there was a giant version of, like, our worst impulses walking around, our bad choices but huge and scary? Yikes.
That's the real horror of Frankenstein. Not the monster itself, but what it says about us. We've all got that potential, right? To be monsters, to make bad choices.
And that's why people are still reading it after all this time. It's not just a fun, scary story. It's about us. What makes us human? Good and bad.
And it reminds us, no matter how good we think we are, we got to think about the consequences, what we're willing to do. Otherwise, we lose ourselves.
So much to think about. Makes you see Frankenstein differently, huh? It's not just the monster under the bed, it's in our heads, too.
And it's up to us what we do with it.
That's something to chew on. Until next time on the deep dive, keep exploring those big questions, but keep an eye on those monsters, okay? The ones inside especially.